Hi, welcome to the Wild Green World. I'm Heron Bray, and today we're going to talk about rewilding.
Yay!
Yay! Yay! It's really exciting that we're here in Oregon near the Columbia Gorge in the Hood River Valley. And what is it? It's mid-August. So what I am coming to understand as rewilding for me is an act of taking a land that's been damaged by civilization and bringing it back to a state of wildness. And to me, that doesn't mean, wildness doesn't mean an isolation of humans. Wildness is allowing each individual life form to fully express what it is in its innate being. And if we live in a system where everything is allowed to be fully expressed in its natural state, then everything is wild. And so we as human beings are part of the system, totally wild in the same way, but we've been shaped and formed by this crooked, twisted system. So our minds and the way that we think and the way that we live have become civilized, so that we're not connected with our innate wild being self and that intuition, that core knowing that we're born with, but we're trained out of us.
Yes!
Yay!
Yes, it's true!
More wildness!
Yeah! So when we're talking about rewilding the land, the humans have to be a part of that. It's like we're actually bringing our gifts. When we learn how to eat from the land and give back and provide more abundance to the plants and animals that are living here, we're becoming part of that ecological system and bringing it more into balance. And I think that gets to a really key fundamental flaw of Western civilization thinking, and that is that we're disconnected somehow, or we're not part of the system. And even the modern environmental movement rests on that foundation by, having all these conservation efforts and restoration efforts and, take the humans away and make this thing a pristine nature. Like nature is more sacred and more beautiful when humans aren't there. And I fundamentally think that that's a flawed way of thinking, and that to rebalance our mindset and the way that we live in the world, we need to actively participate with the place where we live and learn in a really real way that our life here, us sustaining our life, can bring more life. I think it's such an interesting conversation to ask, how did it start? How did it start? I'm not going to pretend like I know the answers, but from a lot of stuff that I've read and thought about, it seems like a lot of it comes from agriculture. I think that the beginning of agriculture, people started living in a way that was about controlling the environment. You started plowing deep into the earth and creating environments that were monoculture or disconnected from kind of simple, inherent kind of wild gardening that's there. Also, that's when people started settling really and stopped living in the nomadic cycles, the hoop, we call it the hoop, where people live in the right way with the land. They travel and they go to different locations that have the food crops ready at the right time of year in the right place, and they harvest that, and then they'll move to the next food crop in a different place, different ecosystem. We're at a site that I think has been used as traditional food grounds for thousands of years, and I can see that by the plants that are here. There's dozens of food plants that are growing in a mosaic throughout this prairie oak savanna woodland, and we're standing at the edge of a big meadow that goes all the way back that way, that at one time was probably a pretty wet meadow during the winter and spring months, and then probably dried up mostly during the summer. And that's habitat that camas really likes. And there's lots of camas all through this meadow here. Unfortunately, a lot of the camas, it's not vibrant. There's not a lot here. If it was being tended and cultivated actively, this place there could be camas so thick, just like grass. And that would make it a really easy, abundant food. You could harvest in abundance and not worry about depleting it.
Native American people came here to do the seasonal harvest, and they would the grandmothers and the mothers and the children would crawl through these valleys on their hands and knees, you know, sorting out the camas roots and putting the small bulbs back, picking the big ones, and making it sure that the crops would continue for the following generations. And this probably has been inhabited for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
In that way, sustainable living, the ultimate original permaculture plan.
Yeah, and like I said, it's obvious that that's true because of the plants that are here, because of the abundance and the patterns that they're growing in. So the land seems a ripe, a fertile place to do rewilding because all the plants are here. But they're just not in the abundance maybe that they would be if they were tended. And there's these other plants that have come in that are taking over. And so doing the work of taking out like the knapweed and the thistles that and planting back the food plants, that's the rewilding plan, you know. And eating the food plants and giving thanks for them and rejoicing and blessing them and doing ceremony, that's all part of it too. I don't want to pretend like we can take lessons from the old way, but I don't want to pretend like we are the native people here. It's like we have to develop a new system that's unique to us and new traditions that come from the old but are our new thing. And this area that we have here, the water got channeled. It got dug into a big pool here, and then there's a ditch that goes along the side. I think that probably has that maybe is a factor to why the camas isn't as abundant right now. Also, I think a factor is that people aren't digging it. And camas and a lot of the other root crops need people to tend it and dig it. And the actual act of digging it creates a better habitat for it to flourish, because it brings more aerates the soil, and the seeds, as they fall when you're digging the camas, the seeds fall into the cracks of the holes that you're digging and create a better habitat for new plants to germinate. And there's little tiny bulblets that pop up all around the adult plants, and when you dig the adult bulb, those bulblets are stimulated to grow also. And so this meadow that we're in also has a lot of weeds in it. Behind us we've got all these Canadian thistles that are going to seed up on that little mound there. They're fluffing away. And then this purple flower back here is knapweed. Knapweed takes over. It's actually interesting. I was walking back there yesterday, and there's all this camas. There's the knapweed's huge. There's big piles of it, and then in the little patch there's like a few camas flowers sticking up. So I know there's still camas in there. If we dig that up, that digging action is probably going to create that same aeration and stuff that the camas digging is. And if we have seeds that we've collected from the camas and we spread in there, I mean, it could be good. You do that?
Yeah, spread camas.
Awesome. Yeah. I wanted to point out the camas, what it looks like at this time of year. And this is one here. They're brown capsules, and they're 3-parted, and they're like little cups, and they're holding these little black seeds in them. So I really like how when you walk through a field of these, they rattle. They're like rattlesnakes.
Wow.
Yep.
Rattlesnake.
Yep. Yeah, and that's also how the seeds get distributed. As you walk past, they're dry and they're held in this cup, and then they just fling into the...
They're getting brushed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so you can see there's a lot of it here. I mean, patches where it's more thick and where it's more sparse all throughout here. Camas is a really special food plant. I don't want to dig up any right now. It's not something we can taste raw because it's all full of inulin. You have to bake it or cook it for a long time. Otherwise it's indigestible. Even a little bit late to dig camas, but you could still dig it now because they're so dry that, you know, they just come right off of the bulb. I think it's a little bit harder to dig then because it'll disconnect from the bulb you're trying to get. And the bulb can be 4 to 6 inches down. Camas roots can be about that big. Yeah, maybe biggest one's that big.
Ping pong
but I've seen them. I've seen a lot of them are like that size.
Like
yeah.
a bulb.
Yeah, they're a little bulb. Yeah, they look like an onion bulb. They have layers like that. So yeah.
This is the time to dig it.
Yes.
But there's deaf camas and then there's the other camas. And how would you tell the difference when they're dried like that?
Yeah. Well, we can look at one. There's some growing down the path a little bit. So here we are comparing the deaf camas with the edible blue camas. and in the seed pod stage. So you can see the death camas has much smaller pods than the true camas, and they're lighter color, and they have, see, each pod is on a fairly long stem. And the biggest, most definitive way to tell is these seeds are a golden tan color, whereas the seeds of the camas are jet black. Do you have any of it? The edible camas seed is the black one, and the tan ones are the death camas seeds. Death camas is appropriately named because, yes, it can kill you if you eat it. No, it is not fun.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. So you definitely have to be really careful when you're digging roots that you have the right species.
It's the roots that you eat, not the seeds.
Yeah, you eat the roots, but you're always going to be digging a root that's attached to a stem that has part of the rewilding, living in the right way with these plants is harvesting them at the right time, which is when they're in seed, so that you're giving each plant its life. You're taking a plant's life, but you're spreading life, because as you take this bulb out of the ground, the seeds from this seed head are falling into those holes that you're creating, and more plants can grow there. So, and if you were going to dig in the springtime when it was blooming, you can dig then, but it's good to have seed from the previous year with you so you can plant back still.